The Ukrainian drone Leleka has been in service with the Ukrainian army since 2021. During this time, it has undergone several upgrades. One of the latest versions of the UAV was received by the soldiers of the 30th Separate Mechanized Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. They have been flying similar UAVs for several years now, and now they will have to test the updated version.
The aircraft is balanced using the battery. That is, the battery is shifted forward or backward to eliminate the angle according to the current wind strength.
After installing the battery and entering all the flight parameters into the drone system, the operators proceed to the final stage before launch, checking the mechanical components.
Now I'm checking the aircraft's functionality, how the ailerons work, how the stabilization modes and the automatic mode operate. I'm checking the operation of the engine from the propeller, plus. We just checked the engine's operation as well. By ear, we listen for any unusual noises. The operator also checks the voltage output to see if the engine is functioning properly. Additionally, the person holding the aircraft can feel whether there is thrust or not.
After preparing the control systems, the drone is taken to the launch site, the elastic band for acceleration is secured, and it is launched into the sky.
The pilot sets the final parameters, adjusting specific settings so that the aircraft follows the pre-planned route. My task as the operator is to check the camera's operation, how it works, and whether there are any issues controlling it. At the moment, I see that everything is working well.
While the drone is over the positions of the Russian occupiers or approaching them, there is always a risk that it will be spotted. The enemy may then try to shoot it down. For this, the Russians most often use FPV drones.
To counter the destruction of our equipment, we try to ascend to an altitude unreachable for FPV interceptors. And we work, so to speak, at a distance using zoom so that we don't get shot down.
During these test flights, the skilled pilots actively simulate patrolling, while in realistic combat conditions.
Sometimes there are no specifically designated targets or points for additional reconnaissance. We only carry out patrolling. By the way, patrolling sometimes yields pretty good results. When the enemy sees a drone in the sky, their plans fall apart. Often they don't make the moves they had planned.
Hard landings are not a problem for this drone. The pilots say that the Leleka is one of the toughest UAVs.
After the manufacturer's update, the aircraft works perfectly, there are no complaints, it completed its mission and successfully returned to its starting position.
The Ukrainian UAV Leleka is capable of staying in the air for up to 4 hours and flying up to 50 kilometers from its launch point. It can perform various tasks, from mapping terrain to conducting reconnaissance behind enemy lines. Dmytro Hlushko from Donetsk region, reporting for Freedom TV channel.
Ukraine has received requests for assistance from 11 countries in the Persian Gulf, Europe, and the United States. As Volodymyr Zelensky stated following the meeting, they are interested in Ukraine's experience in defending against Shaheds, specifically in interceptors, electronic warfare systems, and training. According to the president, Ukraine is ready to help those who help it. And Kyiv has already responded to some of these requests with concrete solutions and support, Zelensky emphasized.
Ukraine has long been offering its partners to update and strengthen our joint capabilities to protect lives. We have discussed both joint defense against drones and missiles and the destruction of relevant production facilities of aggressor regimes, factories and weapons that are currently being used in attacks. Each of these regimes has set itself against the world, and there must be responses to this. Every Shahed production site is known. The Iranian and Russian regimes support each other. And there is more and more information, in particular about Russian components in Shaheds that are striking Iran's neighbors. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Ukraine will remain a key topic on the agenda of the European Union's Foreign Policy Day. It is in Brussels' security interest to continue helping Kyiv and to contain Russian aggression. These statements were made today at the daily conference of EU ambassadors. A special correspondent is monitoring the meeting. Freedom TV channel in Europe, Vitaly Sizov. He knows more details. Vitaly, hello. Tell me the details of the meeting. It has already been possible to find out what messages were voiced by European diplomats.
Good afternoon, Mikhail. Indeed, here in Brussels, the ambassadors of the European Union gather every year. These are the people who represent EU diplomacy around the world. They talked a lot about what is happening on the planet, about new conflicts such as the war in the Middle East, and about trade and economic challenges. But against the backdrop of everything happening, the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, emphasized that aid to Ukraine is an absolute priority for Brussels, and she promised to provide the pledged 90 billion euros loan to Ukraine to support its economy and armed forces.
Right now, what Ukraine needs most of all is stable financial support. That is precisely why we proposed a loan of 90 billion euros to finance Ukraine's needs. You all saw the difficulties we faced in bringing this matter to completion, even after all 27 leaders agreed to it. This brings us back to the question I raised earlier. Is our system still capable of functioning effectively? But I can assure you that we will fulfill our commitments because our reputation is at stake and, more importantly, our security. For us, it is absolutely clear that we will provide this 90 billion loan.
Let me remind you that this loan, the decision to provide it has already been made, but the final approvals still need to be completed, and the obstacle is Hungary's position, which so far has not agreed to it. From a technical standpoint, this involves making amendments to the European Union's multi-year budget, under which this loan will be directly taken. At the meeting, by the way, the head of European diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, was also present. She emphasized that right now, at the political level, there is a lot of talk around the world about the need to start negotiations with Moscow. However, according to Kallas, the main thing in this process is not the negotiations themselves, but to clearly understand that what to demand in these negotiations and from what position to enter them. And Kallas believes that negotiations will only be possible if Moscow truly wants peace. But for now, in her assessment, Russia is only intent on escalating the war.
Russia's maximalist demands cannot be met with a minimalist response. That's just common sense. If the size of the Ukrainian army is to be limited, then Russia must also be limited. Wherever Russia has caused damage to Ukraine, it must pay. There should be no amnesty for war crimes or crimes against humanity, and deported Ukrainian children must be returned.
The President of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola, was also present at the meeting. She represented the legislative authority of the European Union, and she emphasized that if we are talking about any negotiations, first and foremost, they must be conducted, these negotiations taking into account the position of Europe and, of course, the position of Ukraine.
Ukraine knows it can count on Europe as it continues its struggle with tremendous courage and pride. And while we try to find paths to peace, our position remains unchanged. It must be a true peace, with honesty and dignity, based on the principle that nothing about Ukraine should be decided without Ukraine, and certainly nothing about Europe without Europe.
Tomorrow here in Brussels, discussions will continue on how to provide Ukraine with a 90 billion euro loan as soon as possible. There will be a meeting here of the economy and finance ministers of the European countries. Officially, this issue is not on the agenda of the Union, but today many EU officials confirmed in private conversations that naturally this issue will be raised. Both the European ministers and EU officials will be looking for ways to complete work on this loan as quickly as possible, and in order, as planned by the European Commission, to make the first payments already in April. Mikhail?
Vitaly, thank you for the detailed and important information. We were joined live from Brussels by Vitaly Sizov, the special correspondent of Freedom TV channel in Europe. He told us about the main statements made by the European Union ambassadors at the meeting in Belgium.